Sweet Springs Sanitarium, tucked away deep in the mountains of West Virginia, is a colossal, abandoned, and notoriously haunted building. Nostalgically referred to as Old Sweet Springs, it was originally built as a grand resort, serving the most wealthy, influential, and powerful members of society. The land was gifted to a prominent family, the Lewis family, by the King of England. The 1,200-acre tract was patented in 1774 to Revolutionary War veteran William Lewis, a brother of General Andrew Lewis. Native American tribes believed the lands and water under it were sacred and contained healing energy. As such, they used the natural spring there as a medicinal and birthing place. The land became coveted by early English settlers due to its location along the spring. Tragically, the grounds were soiled in bloodshed when a gruesome battle broke out between the natives who were defending their hallowed terrain and the soldiers who were ordered to seize it. Many natives were slaughtered by the white settlers for control of its waters. After the land was commandeered, the massive structure was built brick by brick solely through slave labor. Slaves were treated deplorably, with maltreatment and abuse entwined into their day-to-day conditions. Construction began in 1830 and was completed by 1833. Among the many guests to stay at Sweet Springs since its establishment as a resort were George Washington, James Madison, Franklin Pierce, Martin Van Buren, and Robert E. Lee. The property originally thrived as a resort, with its visitors basking in its lavish amenities. The Springs Pool House was a central hub for relaxation. The grounds offered a plethora of games and activities for socialization, and a ballroom hosted grand events. In the early 1900s, its business began a steady decline until it eventually went bankrupt in 1930. A significant factor in its demise was the absence of a railroad line near the resort. Other resorts, such as Greenbrier at White Sulphur Springs, were instead thriving with their convenient access to the railroad. In 1942, the property was turned into a tuberculosis hospital and renamed Sweet Springs Sanitarium. During that era, hundreds of patients were admitted, only to succumb to the disease, suffering agonizing deaths through suffocation of their failing lungs. Those who were casualties of tuberculosis could not be afforded a proper burial, as they were concerned that their bodies could spread the disease. Instead, the bodies of those that died within this building were buried in unmarked graves on the premises. In 1944, a cure for tuberculosis, the antibiotic streptomycin, was successfully used to treat patients. When the facility was no longer needed to house those who were ill and dying of tuberculosis, it was turned into a nursing home for poor and elderly. Throughout its time as a nursing home, there were many who died there from diseases obtained in their old age. However, many untimely deaths due to neglect and even rumored patient murders were inflicted upon its inhabitants as well. One particularly gruesome type of death reported was patients being scalded to death in the hydrotherapy tubs due to excessively hot water that they were left in. Some would even drown after being left unattended. The nursing home eventually fell into a state of disrepair due to underfunding, and it became abandoned in the 1990s. The belongings of some of its past inhabitants still take up space in closets and dresser drawers to this day. The current owners have been working diligently to protect and restore the property and host events. It also serves as an exploration ground for paranormal investigators who desire to attempt contact with the restless souls of the dead who never left the premises. Though all human inhabitants abandoned it in 1993, it has never truly been empty. In total, it is estimated over 1,000 people died on this property over its time as a sanitarium and nursing home. But many deaths are not accounted for in this death toll, including those who lost their lives over the battle for the land and the slaves who were worked to death or even killed there. Though the details behind all of the loss of life within the sanitarium are largely undocumented, the paranormal activity that has been left behind will sometimes speak of its past for those who are paying attention. Unexplained activity within this building includes shadow figures darting in and out of rooms or up and down hallways, audible voices, screams, and other noises with no determined earthly cause. Lights turning on and off on their own, doors or cabinets opening and closing by themselves, and the sounds of footsteps with no human source. The most haunted locations on the property include the basement. The basement contains a hospital wing, an area that served as the slaves' quarters and kitchen, a boiler room, and a laundry room where a gruesome accident occurred. The slave quarters is said to contain energies of the mistreated souls. The sounds of disembodied voices, chanting, dragging of chains, and even screams are just some of the chilling encounters that people have experienced in that location. The laundry room at the long end of the slave corridor is the site of a terrible tragedy. A woman who worked there was tending to her laundry duties, but got her hand caught in the laundry machine. The rolling design of the machine entrapped and crushed her entire arm to the point her arm was ripped off by the machine. People visiting this area of the basement have captured electronic voice phenomena that say words such as laundry and my arm. The woman lived from her injury, so it is uncertain why her spirit seems to linger there. Some theorize her spirit came back there after she died. Others feel that the trauma of the event imprinted the energy of the incident there, and that the activity is residual, but her spirit not actually there. The laundry room is also where they stored bodies until they could be buried, sometimes having to remain there through the long winters until the ground thawed, when it was a tuberculosis hospital. In the basement's hospital, hundreds of patients would have died there during its time as a tuberculosis sanitarium. Room 3007 on the 3rd floor. A full-bodied apparition of a woman in a long white period gown has been witnessed by many visitors in this room. When spotted, she is seen looking longingly out of the window. People have heard a disembodied voice of a female there, and some feel touched by an unseen entity while in and around her room. Some refer to her as the Lady in White, while others call her the Lady in Blue, as some people say that they see her in blue and not in white. Her attachment to that room remains unknown, although it is storied that perhaps she had a lover who went off to war, and she gazes out the window awaiting his return. The west wing of the second floor. During our visit, we were told this was at one time the hospice ward of the nursing home. We started calling this area of the building the busy hallway, due to loud, unexplained noises that seemed to come at us from all directions, including the sounds of tapping, clanking, banging, shuffling, thuds, door slams, and footsteps. The spring. Some say that they hear unexplained voices emanating from the spring water when visiting this once sacred pool. During our visit to the spring, we performed a tobacco ceremony for the natives of the land in attempts to communicate to them that our visit was one of peace and respect. Shortly after the ceremony, as we sat quietly, taking in the spring's energy, a large snapping turtle emerged beneath the water's surface, perhaps a sign from the spirits that they heard us and were with us. Ashby Berkeley, the most recent owner of the property, has said of the building, quote, "If you listen to it, it will guide you," end quote. We heeded his advice during our private paranormal investigation of Sweet Springs Sanitarium in July of 2024. We were the only people permitted in the building during our investigation. Though we focused on areas that are reported to have the most activity, there were a few areas of the building that drew us in and spoke to us in their own way. Please join us by watching our investigation videos that document our haunted exploration of Old Sweet Springs to witness the paranormal experiences we encountered there.